Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the Nerdic Pro podcast. My name is, as per usual, Bobby effing Salazar, and welcome back to the Nerdic Pro podcast. With me this evening is none other than from the very great white north. He is the one and only from the Wrestling with the 80's podcast. One of the greatest eras of pro wrestling, I must say. The one and only Mr. Blair Cody. Blair, how are we?
How you doing, Bobby? And it's a pleasure to be on your show this evening.
Honestly, thank you very, very much for coming on. It's a pleasure. I know that, I've seen several of your shows as well. As well as seeing you on Wrestling and Everything Coast to Coast as well. A couple of times. I believe you were back on there a couple of times recently for their 6th anniversary show and another one recently, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's correct. For the 6th anniversary show, I got to be part of just an absolutely amazing panel. I'm not even sure how I stumbled into that because I am nowhere on the level that everybody else is. But I was on there, which was an absolute pleasure. Got to meet some great people. And then it was just a week ago, I guess, a little more than a week ago. But I was on with Russ, who's been on your show. I saw him on your show as well. And Benny Scala, and we just kind of had a hodgepodge episode. It was originally we were going to be interviewing someone, and unfortunately something came up last minute with them. But so it turned into just a hodgepodge, just like whatever topics, and it turned into be a really fun conversation, really good episode. And that's usually what the case is when sometimes they're off the script, right?
Well, that's the entire point of the wrestling business. There's always something to talk about. There's always stuff going on. You know what I mean? No matter about where it be. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Call it in the ring, as they say, right?
100%. 100%. And again, with podcasting, as well, there's never too much podcasting. There's never too much wrestling. There's never too much of any of this sort of stuff. So, that's one of the great things about podcasting, which I'm sure that we will get into this evening. Already, Blair, we have some people commenting. First off is none other than Richie Stoneham, who hosts the Nerdic Pro's sister show here on the Nerdic Pro podcast YouTube channel of Feeling Blair, which is the metal music sort of type of scene. Richie said, "Hi everyone, hello Richie, how are we?" And then I do apologise if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. But Stephen Generelli, again, I do apologise if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Great to be here with Bobby and Blair. Honestly, thank you very much for tuning in. Very much appreciated. I'll
let you know a little secret, Bobby. That's the great Steve Generelli from Stick to Wrestling podcast with John McAdam. I don't know if you ever checked that one out, but Steve is he's going to be on my newest episodes coming out. I'm hoping if fingers crossed I get it out this evening. I just had some last minute editing fixes that I just wanted to make. Not anything on Steve's end, on my end. And if not, I'll be out tomorrow for sure. But we had a fantastic conversation about what I called before the wrestling boom, before the Hulkamania era, the WWF in the early 80s, that period of 80 to 83. Just kind of a forgotten era of wrestling, if you know what I mean. And Steve's an expert on the WWF side of things from 76 right through the 80s. He was there for that time period and does an amazing job. He's on Stick to Wrestling. He's on the Outdated Wrestling Hour with Bob Smith, and he's on the Tony Richards podcast as well, the Pro Wrestling Time Tunnel. So an amazing guest. Yeah. So thank you, Steve, for coming out and supporting us tonight, because this is awesome.
Yeah. It's great to know that you've got so many great podcasts coming up and working with such great people. And this is one thing that I like about what yourselves are doing. You're keeping the territory days, you're keeping the 80s and 90s alive, if you want to call it that. Do you know what I mean? Because a lot of the younger fans and the newer fans of wrestling won't really know a lot about like the 70s and 80s. Yeah, like from like 80 to 83, like Bob Backlund was still the champion at the time. He obviously lost it to the Iron Sheik, and then the Iron Sheik losing it to Hulk Hogan, which was pretty much what kick-started the whole like Hulkamania era, and what helped push the 80s and the WWF into that massive international like expansion sort of period. You know what I mean? So I believe that even in like the early 80s, I believe that the WWF was still known as the WWF. I believe. Well,
I'm trying to remember now. Of course, Steve will be able to correct me. I'm going blank. I'm trying to remember. I think it was 1979 when they changed from the WWF to the WWF, because it was when Hogan's first run was there. It was happening. I could be wrong. It's either 79 or 80 or 80. It's right around then. But yeah, and if you watch WWE right now, you might see a little bit about, the era before then, say maybe the Bruno Sammartino era, the Superstar Billy Graham era, that type of thing. But you'll see, of course, the Hulkamania era and stuff like that, and the Attitude Era. But for some reason, that time period really gets ignored, and it's a shame that it does, because we talk about in the episode. I mean, you had Bob Backlund, and I know people are kind of so on Backlund. Was he kind of boring or whatever? But man, he could work. That's for sure. And he had some great opponents as well at that time. But then you also had guys that really need to be celebrated, like Don Morocco, somebody like that, Superfly Snuka. Now, put aside what has happened in Superfly Snuka's post-wrestling career and all that stuff, but at that time, what a phenomenon he was. You had like one of your guys, Dynamite Kid, at that time, putting on amazing matches with Tiger Mask and different things that were happening that really seems like it's just kind of fallen by the wayside, unfortunately. And now younger fans, all they think of is maybe the Hulkamania era, but really it's the Attitude Era seems to be the big thing, right? So I love getting a chance to shine a light on that side of it, as well as all the territories that are going on at that time, because I think even if you're a wrestler today, there's so much you can take from what was happening back then and use it today and make it successful.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like you say about Jimmy Snuka. Someone else that you could also say about Hulk Hogan. I've always said that Terry Bollea and Hulk Hogan are two completely different people. Yes. Do you know what I mean? Terry Bollea, the person, you could argue was a scumbag, whereas Hulk Hogan, the character, if it weren't for him personally, I think that the wrestling business would be a very different scene, and like what have you. And would the WWE would have had anywhere near the amount of success that it has throughout the decades if it wasn't for Hulk Hogan? Do you know what I mean? Because again, he was everywhere back in the day. He was absolutely everywhere. Like it's like the John Cena's and like the Rey Mysterios like today. Again, all over the place. Do you know what I mean? That was like the Hulk Hogan before. And even before Hulk Hogan, like you mentioned him before, like Bruno Sammartino. Again, like many people, like I said, go into places like Madison Square Garden. Bruno Sammartino's face would be all over like the merchandise stand, be all over the posters, and be everywhere because he was treated as some sort of saint, some sort of god, like back in the day. You know what I mean? And again, like I think that wrestling would be a very different place like without these people as their character, not as who they were behind the scenes and personally.
One of my guests that was on when we did the Bruno Sammartino episode, Benny Scala, he comes from an Italian household, and he made the joke that in every Italian family there was 3 pictures on the wall. It was Jesus, the Pope, and Bruno Sammartino.
I was gonna say because he like I remember watching it was I think it was Bruno's Hall of Fame like induction package, and I think that story was that he was because I believe Bruno like was Jewish, like wasn't he? And
no, he's Italian.
Yeah, and he had to flee Italy from the Nazis, and like what have you, which then brought him into the States. and like what have you, and you know, literally going from like war torn, you know, World War II Italy to becoming one of the biggest names like in pro wrestling ever. You know, well, at the time, you know, like again, like I'm personally like a big fan of like the old territory days, like myself, and I would say that I'm annoyed that people like Bruno Sammartino aren't more spoken about today. Do you know what I mean? Again, the fact that now he's had the longest reign of the WWE Championship of 2,803 days. Do you know what I mean? You know, that's just a fantastic sort of thing to have, and like what have you. And yeah, you know, people like, as you said, like Don Morocco, people like Pedro Morales, even going back to like outside of the WWF, people like Bobo Brazil, Stan Stasiak, do you know what I mean? You know, like again, all these other people that, you know, aren't anywhere near spoken about today. I think they should be more, you know what I mean?
Yep, for sure. That's the building blocks of what we have today. And I mean, as I say, you know, if some of the modern folks would take some stuff, go watch some tapes of some of these people that were over, and I mean massively over back then. You know, in an age when you didn't have social media, when you didn't have, you know, 1,000 TV channels in every home, you're just basically going off of word of mouth. You're going off maybe some newspaper, the Saturday morning wrestling that was on to promote it, but the big cards were not actually happening on TV. They were happening in the arenas, and these people talked you into the seats, and they had a presence and an aura that you had to go see them. You know, like somebody like a Bruno Sammartino, what a story he has. I mean, you're right. Coming from war-torn Italy in World War II, he's, you know, starving in the mountains of Italy while the Nazis are occupying the village that they're from. When he comes to America, he's 96 pounds at 14 years old and builds his body up to this near 300-pound muscle man. Just unbelievable. He is the American dream, as you know, the Dusty Rhodes saying goes. But it's just unbelievable. So people like that, and you know, Dusty's another great one to talk about. You know, you talk about talking people into the seats, and just his promo abilities and just the believability. That's something that I knew would be talked about tonight. Was just, there was a believability factor back then. People believed in the product, they believed in the wrestlers, and sometimes I wonder if that's a bit of what's missing right now. I mean, we have some amazing athletes that are wrestlers right now, but sometimes 100%. I feel like I don't believe in the wrestlers because it feels like they're really playing a part, you know what I mean, as opposed to actually being that person just turned up to 10. And so yeah, it's amazing. Just you, like, I'll say it, I'll scream it from the rooftops. If you're a heel in wrestling today, if you're not looking at tapes of Tully Blanchard and watching what he does and how to be a heel and how to work against a babyface and get a babyface over, or an Arn Anderson or Ole and Arn Anderson in a tag team, you're doing yourself a disservice for sure.
Yeah, 100%. The thing is, like, back in the day, you know, like, you didn't have the, you know, the things. People weren't breaking kayfabe every 2 minutes. You know, like, you didn't have like the dirt sheets. You didn't have, you know, as we said, social media. Facebook wasn't a thing. Twitter wasn't a thing. Instagram wasn't a thing. YouTube wasn't a thing. You know, like, the internet wasn't exactly, you know, really like a thing back then, saying it like I was around, but like yeah, like, it's, but today, you know, coming from someone that's, you know, grown up the last how long have I been a wrestling fan before now? 17, 18 years now, and you know, it, to me, it gets less and less believable about who the babyface is, who the heel is, because, you know, like, you look at the Grand Wizard of wrestling, like the manager, again, never cut a promo ever, you know, and it's like, do you need to continuously cut promos before every match, after every match, to prove that you're someone who the fans are supposed to despise. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, because like as we said, back in the day, people despise the heels. Like there's a story of a British wrestler, female British wrestler, Klondike Kate, where she was at a show somewhere. She was like sitting in the corner, and someone came up behind her, like a fan, and like ejected her with a tetanus jab, right? Because again, she was that hated by the crowd. Like she was injected with this like injection like of tetanus, and it's that's like deep, baby. You know what I mean? Like that's insane. I think like back in the day, like over here, like in British wrestling, like you would get like the old grannies like sat in the crowd, when like the heels were coming out, like beating them like with the handbags and like the purses, and throwing stuff at them because they were that despised by the crowd and everything. And it's like that. If you're getting that sort of response off someone, then you're doing like your job right. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, just today, to me, it just feels a hell of a lot different. Do you know what I mean? Which, yeah. So, had a few comments. Stephen saying that I pronounce his name great. Thank you very much. I'm, like reading's not my strong point. So, yeah, you would have thought that English is like it's my first language, but there we are. Stephen had said as well, glad to be here with you, great fellow. Obviously, meaning yourself, Blair. You are correct, Blair. So I'd imagine that'll be from when the WWF changed the WWF in '79. Because I do know, originally it was the Capital Wrestling Corporation from like the early 50s to 63. Then they broke away from the NWA. And then obviously changed it from the Capital Wrestling Corporation to the WWF. And then we've had several name changes since. Yes. Richie again, modern day wrestling has too many athletes, not enough wrestlers. I fully agree. To me, like a lot of people look like they're fresh out of like ballet class and fresh out of like the gymnast school and everything. Richie again has said, problem is people know wrestling as a work now, and treat it as to show, where as back in the day they treat it alongside things like boxing. 100%. Because again, boxing as well. Obviously boxing is legit. Same with like MMA, like things like UFC and like Bellator, etc. So again, it should be looked at in the same sort of limelight as boxing and MMA.
Well, and to that point, I agree with Richie on that. But there, ironically, we are in an age of social media, and the wrestlers don't do themselves any favors with social media. I think social media could be their best friend in order to get the believability back in it, because all you have to do is tweet or put posts out as your wrestling persona, but keep that personal social media out of it. Like, there's nothing more frustrating when you have some, I don't know, say it was the Fiend Bray Wyatt, right? He's doing a post by the Fiend, and then later that day I see Wyndham Rotundo's post where he's with his pregnant wife or something like that. That's not what I want to see. Yeah. Like, your job as a wrestler is to protect kayfabe, right? I know we know that toothpaste is out of the bottle. We can't get it back. But we knew in the 80s too that this was not real, as you say, right? But again, we go back to the believability factor. For as much as people want to talk about these guys aren't as believable now, look at a Brock Lesnar. I don't care what you say, he is believable. Whenever that's why the crowd, it's almost like the air gets sucked out of the room when his music hits, because he is believable. You still don't know if that guy is going off script, if he's going to, murder somebody, if he's going to suplex somebody through a wall or whatever. And that's because he sticks to his character. You don't see Brock Lesnar tweeting every day about, puppies and stuff like that, right? He doesn't care. He doesn't need that. He'll sell a ton of t-shirts because he is believable and stuff like that. So the wrestlers are not doing themselves any favor. You look at a guy like MJF, especially earlier on. Now he's kind of fallen into that trap as well. But earlier on, he just stuck to his character, and he was just an asshole. Sorry, I don't know if I can curse on this or anything like this.
Go ahead.
but he was just an asshole all the time, like on social media, on interviews, everything, to the point you thought maybe this guy really is that character. And he was the most over heel in wrestling because he does that, right? So it's not hard. If anything, this social media should be your best friend, because you can just constantly churn out your feuds and getting involved with stuff with the fans, and you're gonna get that reaction. But people are they're skirting the lines, and plus everybody wants to be popular now, and everybody wants to have fans, and everybody's afraid to piss somebody off, and it's just you're just going to end up ruining the product yourself when it should be so easy. Like I say, Obafemi, there's another guy that feels believable, right? But I don't follow his social media. I don't know, maybe he's tweeting about rainbows and lollipops. I don't know, but it should be. I think a guy like, let me see, Michael Hayes from the Freebirds. I think imagine if he had Twitter back in the day, how much trouble he could rile up on something like that, right?
Who else back in the day? Someone like superstar Billy Graham. Ivan Koloff, again, some of the biggest heels like from back in the day.
Nikita Koloff, right? Like he wouldn't speak English. He would do his fake Russian. He would stay in character all the time, right?
The Iron Sheik.
Yeah,
exactly. I remember seeing the like when back in like the early 80s during the American and Iraq war, like there were fears for Sheik's safety because of like the character he was playing, and because of everything going on politically and everything. Like there was fears like for his life really, and like what have you. And he was I think it was Sergeant Slaughter, I believe, even had to come down to the ring wearing like a bulletproof vest and everything, like because of like all these tensions and like everything like that as well. And it's like the fact that how these people are having to come down to the ring in bulletproof vests and everything because of the current political situation. Like again, if social media was a thing back then, like again, they'd probably be dead. You know what I mean? So, but that's obviously like the beauty, like of wrestling. Like again, like you want to, well, not necessarily have fears for your safety, but like get to that point where the crowd hate you as a character. You want
to get to the and this coming from a wrestling background as a referee, you want to get to the point that the crowd is coming to the arena to see you get beat, right? If you're a bad guy, that's what they want. Roddy Piper always talked about, WrestleMania, were they coming to see Hogan or were they coming to see Hogan beat Piper, right? That's you want to rile the crowd up so much that number one, it gets your good guy over, and number two, they are drawing money, and that's wrestling 101. It's a very simple formula, but for some reason people don't want to use that formula anymore.
No, exactly. Blair, we've obviously gone very much in depth about like the wrestling world, and we'll get back onto like wrestling in a moment. But one thing that I would like to ask is, who is Blair Cody? Where, when, how, why, who, with, etc. did you first discover pro wrestling, and how did that or anything tie into how you first got into like the podcasting world with wrestling with the 80s.
Yeah. So thanks for the opportunity to talk about this. So I was born in 1975, so I grew up in, my, I guess when you talk about my knowledge base, life starts to unravel in like 1980 is when you're before that, you're kind of not remembering stuff, right? So it's funny, that's why this channel came about, because that time period is just it's such a memorable time for me. But my grandmother was a wrestling fan, to be quite honest, and so I'd be over at her place and she'd be watching the local wrestling product, which here we called it Atlantic Grand Prix Wrestling. It was Leo Burke was our big superstar. He was our Hulk Hogan of the territory here. The territory ran in the summertime. It wasn't full year. Couple of reasons, because of travel, getting people here, because of the weather and stuff like that. And then a lot of the folks would go out to Calgary and wrestle out there in Stampede in the wintertime and stuff like that. But so my first seeing wrestling was that type of wrestling. It was territory wrestling, regional territory wrestling. To me at the time, I thought, okay, this is interesting. I wasn't hooked, I wouldn't say, but I loved being with my grandmother, and she was into it. She's one of those ones that was jumping off the couch and just, fists in the air, want to get the Cuban assassin because he was attacking Leo Burke and stuff like that. And so then I guess one Saturday morning I'm watching cartoons like in 1985, and what pops up on the cartoons is Hulk Hogan's Rock'em Wrestling, the cartoon, right? And this is the first I've seen of Hulk Hogan at this time. I'd seen maybe a little bit of AWA, I think, that same year, but that's about it. We weren't getting much around here. We didn't get, unfortunately, we didn't have the Superstation or anything like that, so we weren't getting Jim Crockett Promotions or Georgia Championship Wrestling or any of that stuff. And I wasn't into the wrestling magazines at that point. But I see Hulk Hogan's Rock'em Wrestling to show what a brilliant person Vince McMahon is. So he has the cartoon on. I think it was at 11 o'clock in the morning where I was at. Immediately after the cartoon, what comes on? It's championship wrestling. It's WWF Championship Wrestling, which eventually became Superstars of Wrestling. First thing I see here is Thriller by Michael Jackson before the copyright rules came out, right there, just playing all the stuff. Hulk Hogan pops up on the screen. I look at this, and I'm looking at Hulk Hogan, and I'm looking over at Leo Burke, and I'm back at Hulk Hogan. I'm like, okay, this is a whole different product, right? And it's flashy, and it's just amazing the stuff that's going on. I'm seeing teams like the British Bulldogs, and I'm seeing the Hart Foundation and the Junkyard Dog and Adrian Adonis, Roddy Piper, all this stuff. I'm like, okay, now I'm hooked. This is what I love. And I remember saying to my grandmother, oh, that's that stuff you're watching, that's the fake stuff. This is the real stuff, right? The WWF. But I was hooked. Like, it was like a drug, like it was just amazing. These larger than life characters, they were like superheroes. I mean, I'm at the age, I'm 10 at the time, and I mean, I'm into He-Man and G.I. Joe, so this is right up my alley, right? Just seeing this. I mean, it's the 80s, so you have Schwarzenegger movies, you have Stallone movies, and all these guys, these jacked guys. So of course wrestling is going to fit right into that. Yeah. So I just fell in love with it. The moment that truly hooked me, where I said, I'm never stopping watching this again, is ironically because I was a Hulkamaniac at first, but it was when Paul Orndorff turned on Hulk Hogan. I thought it was just the greatest heel turn of all time. And so I was like, that's it. I'm done. I am a wrestling fan forever. I see the British Bulldogs, and I'm like, oh my God, I've never seen anything like this before. Because the one knock against the WWF, it was a big man territory. It was kind of slow moving and stuff like that. It was all about the character work as opposed to the work rate. And then the Bulldogs show up, and I'm like, wow, this is amazing. And it made me love tag team wrestling. And then I watched them against the Hart Foundation, and at the time not realizing that they knew each other for years from Stampede and stuff like that. And I'm just mind blown watching this, and that hooked me for tag team wrestling. Then I'm buying the wrestling magazines because, again, I'm not seeing these other territories, and I'm learning about the territories from the wrestling magazines. Then I'm going to the video store and renting videotapes of all these different territories and stuff like that. By that time, I'm starting to get the AWA on my TV, and this is 86, and I'm like, oh wow, okay, this is something different. And I think my first introduction to AWA was like Scott Hall and Kurt Hennig as a tag team, and they were fantastic. And Nick Bockwinkel as champion, and Stan Hansen was there, and Rick Martel, and all these people. And then you had the Midnight Rockers feuding with with Playboy Buddy Rose and Doug Summers, and Sherry Martel's there, and it's just fantastic. So again, I'm like, this is amazing. And then finally I get Jim Crockett Promotions. I'm like, oh my God, what is this? This is fantastic. So it was just, it's funny now. I think now, like, how people are so tribal about wrestling. I would watch whatever it was. I didn't care what it was. I just needed more wrestling and stuff like that. So sorry, it's a long story, but you become a fan and you just become addicted to this stuff. And I really was enjoying it. And where I'm in Nova Scotia, Canada. So I'm on the east coast of Nova Scotia, Atlantic Ocean. The only thing between you and me is Newfoundland. So it's but it's a small town area, and guys from Nova Scotia didn't become professional wrestlers back then. There wasn't a wrestling school I could go to unless I was going to Toronto or Calgary or something like that. So it wasn't something that I ever thought could be a career. Or there wasn't a lot of independent wrestling around here. It wasn't kind of the independent stuff had slowed down. And so, for me, a chance to be in wrestling was gone, but there was always a dream of mine, and maybe to do announcing or something like that. So long story short, we get into COVID, and myself and another buddy of mine who is a massive wrestling fan as well, we're kind of bored out of our minds, and we're thinking, we talk about wrestling a lot. We should do a podcast. Everybody's doing a podcast now. Why don't we do a podcast? So that's what we did. And it was in 2021, we started a podcast called Wrestling with the Truth. And that was about the modern product. We did modern product and talked a bit about the Attitude Era and stuff like that. And, that was a blast. And my buddy and I had a great time, and we met a lot of people through that. By 2023, there was a lot of life stuff going on. So we kind of had to gear that one down. I decided to stay in podcast, but I decided to check out the YouTube side of it. And I wanted to talk about something that I really loved, which was the old school product, because we had kind of gotten back into the wrestling because of what was going on with the bloodline and stuff like that in 2020, 2021 and all that. But by that time I was starting to go, okay, this is starting to get a little off the rails again. So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to talk about what I love, my true love, and that's 80s wrestling. And that's where Wrestling with the 80s came from. And I also, I'm a creative person, so I love doing, videos and stuff like that, and creating stuff and editing stuff. So that's kind of where the wrestling channel came from. And I love doing the interview stuff. It's amazing, but I love to put my own little touch on it, and add a lot of pictures and a lot of opening sequences and stuff like that, instead of just a straight up interview, because I want to give people the experience. I want people to see what we're talking about, these wrestlers that we're talking about. But again, how it is with copyright and stuff like that. You can't put video up there or whatever. So I'm creating the magic myself. And if there's times when I'm just splicing together lots of pictures and making them go fast, so it looks like the video and stuff like that. But I just want to give the viewer that feeling and of being there, and I try to, when I talk about something from that time period, express what it was like to be there. And I just want to ignite that passion. And well, two things. I want to bring back good memories for the folks that were watching that back in the day, and I want to ignite that passion in younger people who maybe will go check that stuff out and really find, like, man, this stuff was really good back then.
100%. Yeah. I mean, me personally, I've been a fan of a massive fan of the territory days for, I'll probably say, best part of a decade. I'm 21 now, and you're probably going back since I was 10, 11 years old, since I've been following the territories. And like we obviously mentioned, like the Dynamite Kid and like the British Bulldog. One of my all-time favourite matches ever is at Wembley Stadium, SummerSlam 1992.
Yes.
The British Bulldog versus Bret the Hitman Hart for the Intercontinental Championship. Genuinely one of my absolute favourite matches ever. And the Dynamite Kid, some of the matches that he had in Japan with the likes of Chris Benoit, and with the likes of Tiger Mask, just again, absolutely beautiful matches. So people like the British Bulldog and the Dynamite Kid, in my opinion, were long before their time.
Yes.
and everything.
Yeah.
You know, like the matches that they were having then, you know, could have easily have been, you know, great matches today had they have been happening today. Do you know what I mean? Because it's like you look at how good they were then, how good could they be today?
Oh,
You know, and
yeah,
it's
Dynamite would have every
like,
belt that there is known to man right now. It's
exactly.
insane. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then like with the Hearts as well, again, one of the greatest tag teams ever. You know, like again, like the matches that they were having like back in the day was just again, if they were happening today, you know, what I mean, like would just be like insane. And yeah, so we've got a couple more comments here from Richie again. So Richie said, "What do they feed grandmothers over that side of the pond?" So many stories, starting with I started watching it as a child with my grandmother.
It's true. It's very true. Like there's so many of us that have that same story. I don't know what it is, Richie. It's like a lot of grandfathers watch too. Like I know my wife, she wasn't a wrestling fan, but her grandfather was a wrestling fan. He loved Andre the Giant, and she still has memories of curling up in a big chair and falling asleep in her grandfather's arms, and he's watching wrestling, right, and getting excited. But for me, I don't know. It was my grandmother. Maybe the grandmothers liked all the wrestlers. Maybe they thought they were good looking or something like that. But they certainly were into it.
Does it come with like the genetics of being Canadian, or is it just like?
Maybe so. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. It's probably part of our passport. I didn't realize.
To be fair, it's exactly the same like over here with like the days of like Big Daddy, the Giant Ace, Smith McManus, etc. You know, like there'd be more people. You know, like it would regularly every year. Like World of Sport would go head to head at the same time as the FA Cup final, which again is the biggest like football tournament like in the UK, and it would get, you know, several figures extra, you know, like at the end more than the FA Cup final. And again, football is our national sport over here, and again, wrestling was getting more viewers than the FA Cup final. And, like which is insane. And yeah, like again, it you know, like several million people would like when I were tuning in, you know, like a Saturday afternoon, like at 4 o'clock, like on ITV, and like what have you. And yeah, like it's insane, you know, like the viewership numbers everywhere. You know, like I wish it would still be the same today.
Yeah,
but no, they axed it in 1998. 1988. Sorry, again, typical. But there we are. So yeah. Also got another one from Slide Counter. 80s wrestling was so iconic. The World Wrestling Federation, the National Wrestling Alliance, the AWA World Class Championship Wrestling. It was so fun to watch as a kid. I never forget. WCCW, that was the Von Erichs territory,
that's right.
if I'm not mistaken. Again, the success that the Von Erichs had specifically as well, they're very much like a forgotten, you know, family lot of wrestlers. Have you seen the Netflix documentary on the Von Erichs yet?
I saw the Iron Claw, the movie.
That was it, the movie, not the Netflix.
Yeah. So I mean, I was a little disappointed with it, just in the you know, the fact that they left out one of the brothers and stuff like that. But I mean, I know it's Hollywood and it's what they got to do, and they're trying to get a certain story across. But it was decent. It was decent. I mean, the guy playing Carrie was about half the size of Carrie, so that was kind of interesting. But I thought the best part of the movie was the line at the end where they have you know, it's Kevin with his boys, you know, and he's sitting there talking about how he once was a big brother, now he's not a brother at all, and that just hits you right in the heart, you know, when you hear that. I always, whenever I talk about Kevin Von Erich, I always say, like, he's probably the strongest human being that's ever graced the face of this earth, to go through so much tragedy, so much loss, and still stay strong and still, encourage his sons to be in the wrestling business. It blows my mind.
100%.
Yeah.
Again, like the influence of the Von Erichs had, again, like the second to none, like again, all of them were involved with wrestling, and like what have you. And again, I forget which one it was, but one of them had a run in the WWE, and I believe it had a run
That
with
was Kerry.
Kerry, with the no, the Intercontinental title, I believe, at one stage. Would you have preferred to have seen the full family in WWE to have had like a full-on sort of like stable, if you want to call it that, like in the WWF, like at one point, or do you reckon the WCCW was like their, like what was best sort of for them?
It would have been nice. Unfortunately, David passed away early in '84, so that, I mean, there wasn't much time. I always think to myself, I got to do a video of like what would be the best. So for a fan who's never watched wrestling from the '80s, what would be the best territory to watch each year? And for me, like 82, 83 would probably be WCCW, because it's just wild with the Von Erichs and the fabulous Freebirds and stuff like that. To me, I think the Von Erichs would not have been as good in the WWF as they would have been in the NWA. I think if Von Erichs could have went to Jim Crockett Promotions as a group, you have David and Kerry and Kevin going in there, maybe have Fritz along as a manager or something like that. That would have been interesting, have them going up against the Four Horsemen, having them going up against, different groups like the Midnight Express in tag team matches, Ole and Arn in tag team matches, Kerry against Flair. We had that, of course, in '84 when Kerry won the title. If David had still been living, we could have possibly had David as a world champion. That would have been fun. I think in the WWF, I don't know if they would have quite worked as well as the NWA. They were hard hitting guys. They were stiff, maybe not on purpose, but they were stiff, and that kind of went with the whole NWA style of wrestling as opposed to the WWF. Kerry, of course, he fit in well because he was just an absolute Olympic god as far as the body on him. It was just crazy. And the fact that he was there doing it with one foot was just another amazing fact. But yeah, it would have been interesting to see them in Jim Crockett Promotions in the NWA or in Mid-South or something like that at that time period, just a hard-hitting territory. It might have, really popped the territory, especially if you bring the fabulous Freebirds over at the same time. But I'm telling you, 83 to 84 World Class is just must see. Like for me, it's 83, it's World Class. 84, it's Mid-South. Mid-South is fantastic in 84. From 85, 86, 87, it's got to be Jim Crockett Promotions, but also from 85, 86, 87, it's got to be WWF too, because they're absolutely cooking and smoking at that time as far as watch that. And then 88, you could say WWF. 89, I would go back to Jim Crockett Promotions, because you have Flair's fantastic run in 89 where he has those series of matches with Steamboat and the matches with Terry Funk, and he's got Sting and Great Muta. Yeah, it's like what a year of 89 he had. And then from then on, it's probably WWF. But it's that, I think that's an episode I'm going to do at some point. I think it'd be a fun one to do, just every year of the 80s. What should you be watching at that time?
Yeah, speaking of Ricky, the Dragon Steamboat, he's another one. Like, I've got a signet signed art print of it somewhere here. Again, he's another like unsung hero of like the like the 80s. Again, former NWA World Heavyweight Champion. Surprised on how we didn't have many more reigns with the title. Yeah, but again, one of the best wrestlers to have ever laced up a pair of boots. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many people from the 80s, like the 70s, as well, who again were just so good at what they did. Yeah, it's just mad how people were able to get so good compared to today. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because to me, my personal opinion, wrestlers then cared more about wrestling than what the wrestlers of today care about wrestling. Do you
Right.
know what I mean?
Right.
And again, I think that Steamboat was one of them who, learned his craft and everything, and tried, tried keeping like kayfabe like alive, and continuously showed his passion for the business. Again, so it would be impossible for someone like Steamboat to have a bad match. Do you know what I mean?
I agree. Yeah.
And again, just go, like, for those of you that don't believe me, just go back and watch the matches that he's had, and then and then like come back and yeah. So
my second favorite match of all time, and it was my favorite until 1997, but my second favorite match of all time is Steamboat Savage from WrestleMania 3. It's just an absolute, it's artwork, right? But I mean, and then for me, my top match, because I'm a Bret Hart guy, is Hart and Austin at WrestleMania 13. That's my all-time favorite. But Steamboat Savage, and then you got Steamboat Flair. All three of those matches are just phenomenal. Like you mentioned, Bulldog and Bret. So there's these common people in there. But if I'm a babyface today, I am studying Ricky Steamboat and Ricky Morton to find out how to sell as a wrestler and how to sell without just dying in the ring and then making this huge comeback. It's learning how to sell. And I mean, they were just amazing at it. Even Hogan was a great seller. He could, I always said that he was so good at, for such a big guy. I mean, he was 6'7" or so at that time, 300 pounds, but he could sell small. He could make himself smaller. So if you're watching a guy like a Greg Valentine beat on him or something like that, it's believable because he could sell small as opposed to just laying in the middle of the ring. And then the way he would just reach out to the fans and get them, up and stuff like that. But yeah, Steamboat was just amazing. I mean, the guy even went and took acting classes so he could sell better. Like, this is his commitment to the craft. And people forget, don't just watch the Flair Steamboat. That'd be my first set of matches I'd say watch Flair Steamboat trilogy, watch Savage Steamboat, but go watch some of his stuff as he did as a tag team wrestler with Jay Youngblood. There was some fantastic stuff there. I mean, in the 70s, they always talk about it. Flair and Steamboat probably had 1,000 matches in the 70s that were just as good or better than the series that they had in '89. So it's just, or go watch. There's a famous match on YouTube that's from the Boston Garden from 1986. It's Ricky Steamboat against Bret Hart. Another fantastic match.
I've seen that. Fantastic. See, me personally, I'm a massive fan of like the Japanese strong style, like what's the word, style, like of wrestling. And genuinely, my absolute favorite match ever is Mitsuharu Misawa versus Toshiaki Kawada from the All Japan Pro Wrestling Super Tag League, and I believe it was 1986, I want to say. And like, out in Japan, you wouldn't screw about with, if you were to pass them like on the street, these would have been the sorts of guys that you'd screw with to get in a bar fight with, because they would kill you, right? And just I think it said a lot, the fact that how Misawa back in, I believe, in 2008, unfortunately passed away in a match in Pro Wrestling Noah by literally landing square on his head and what have you, and that unfortunately ended up killing him because they would just. You look at any Mitsuharu like Misawa match, and every single match you could feel the vibration of every hit, every clothesline, just everything from a million miles off. Which again, that just made it look so much more believable and everything. And guys like the pillars of All Japan, Misawa, Kawada, Akira Taue, etc. They just, again, they were exactly the same. It would be further than impossible for them to have had a bad match because of how good they were at everything, and yeah, which is why I'm a massive fan of them, so Slide Counter again has said, oh my God, yes, Von Erichs versus Four Horsemen would have been so great. Again, I fully agree. Again, Slide Counter again. Ricky Steamboat was a tremendous athlete. He could wrestle with absolutely anyone. And then again, Slide Counter. Hart, Henning, Savage, Steamboat, Flair had the best abilities to wrestle anyone.
Kurt Hennig, another guy, just amazing. By the way, hi Slide Counter. Slide Counter's joined a few of my live streams too, so I really appreciate stopping by. But yeah, Hennig, another of the favorite matches is Hennig and Hart at SummerSlam for the IC title, right? Yeah. Piper and Hart at WrestleMania. Again, there's a theme there with who's involved with all these matches, but Brett and Owen, they had some great matches as well. So it's just there's just a plethora of it. For the people that think that, it was the Hogan era, was just big steroid guys. No, there was some really, really talented people. I don't think Ricky Morton had a steroid enter his body ever, and he was as over as anybody. But guys also, that was the difference too. They wrestled to their size. You didn't have a Ricky Morton press slamming the Warlord or something like that, right? They knew their role. It was to generate sympathy. They were getting beaten down, and then the heel slips on that banana peel, and then they finally get their chance to get their comeuppance and get that sneak win in there. And that's whereas today you got guys that are just, unfortunately they grew up watching the Japanese strong style as well, but they don't look the part of the Japanese strong style. So you got two guys who, look like a combined weight of 250 pounds doing forearm exchanges in the middle of the ring, which is not what those guys in Japan looked like back in the day. No.
Yeah. Again, Ricky Morton, again, one of the greatest tag wrestlers to ever exist as well, back in like the old territory days.
Yeah.
Again, what match of theirs was below like a 5-star rating? Do you know what I mean?
I mean, watch any match with them and the Midnight Express. Again, the Midnight Express, probably the greatest tag team of all time. And I mean, they're all 5-star matches, and they're all just clinics. And there's a little difference in each match. It's not just rinse and repeat every time. But again, Midnight Express, another couple of guys, Condrey and Eaton, and of course Stan Lane later on. But Condrey and Eaton, they didn't look physically like they were, Greek gods, but man, they were believable. Man, they could work in that ring. It's just unreal. And that's what I love about that time of wrestling is I love the little things about wrestling, just something simple, whether it's a lockup that's really stiff or, on a tag team match, just the little things that are done. Like I love how Dennis Condrey would stop somebody. He would cut them off from getting to their tag team partner. So Eaton would be able to come in and get some heelish moves in and stuff like that. The way the Rock and Roll Express, they did their thing in the double team maneuvers. The Rockers, another team like Michaels and Jannetty, same thing. Like they did some amazing stuff like that. The Hart Foundation, I mean, they were just vicious in the way they did things. The Bulldogs, even things like, I didn't even think about it in the 80s. It was more so later on in my life, but I think about like you have Davey and Dynamite. So Dynamite had the snap suplex. So what did Davey had? He had the delayed suplex, things like that. Like Dynamite, would do certain moves and Davey would do them the opposite way. It's just these little things that just added to it. It's just, I don't know. I'm a sucker for the little things in matches. It's just great.
I'd just like to put out there, this is what I like about pro wrestling. We could just sit here for hours on end and just talk about wrestling like for God only knows how long.
That's probably my weakness. Yeah. That's my problem. I can talk about it forever.
Mate, honestly, go back and watch any episode of the Nerdic, probably the 400 and some odd that have happened now. And I get 2 sentences into what I'm going to talk about. And then the rest of the hour and a half long podcast is nothing of like what I've got written down. Again, pages of notes. that I've got for like just for tonight, and yeah, like we're sat here, just chatting about stuff, and like this is what I like about wrestling. Do you know what I mean? And, yeah. So another.
You can go back to your notes. That's fine. I've got all the time in the world.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Again, one of the things that I like about podcasting, like as well, is I think you even shared Evan Ginsberg's post on Facebook saying, again, Evan, legend when it comes to podcasting. He, previously been here like the Nerdic Pro podcast with Russ, the associate producer of The Wrestler, which was nominated twice at the Oscars, and Mickey Rourke even won the Golden Globe because of that film. And as well, the associate producer for 350 Days, perhaps the most famous wrestling documentary on the planet. So if you want to listen to anyone when it comes to that sort of stuff, right, Evan Ginsberg is the bloke to listen to. And he was saying, if you've got notes and what have you, don't just read out your question, wait for your guest to answer, and then ask the next question. Try to conversate off of that answer. And, because, again, it's happened a million times, like with me. Again, I've had a million people from, Germany, all over the UK, from Canada, the States, etc., where they've, I've asked them a question, and then they've answered with something that I didn't know about. And then I've then questioned them like on that, and then, getting on to like more stuff, and, and like what have you, and again, question them on things that they brought up. And again, I hate it when, I just read out questions, because, again, it just makes me, excuse the French, it just makes me sound shit, like as a podcast. It's just, which is why I fully agree with what Evan said. Conversate off of their answer, and, try to not necessarily tangent, but tangent. If you know what I mean. Don't tangent, but tangent. Do you know what I mean? And
like we said at the beginning, called in the ring, right?
Richie here had said, if there aren't random tangents and distractions, is it even a Nerdic Pro podcast? I remember myself and Richie were doing a podcast. Can't remember what we were doing it about, but literally whilst we were filming said podcast, it was then released that CM Punk had been fired from AEW, and literally it was like breaking news, like all over social media. So we're not even 20 minutes into this podcast, probably only planning it to be like 45 minutes, if that. And I think it ended up being like 2.5 hours, like at the end, because we started talking about like the whole like CM Punk debacle. And and then once I again can't remember, what the main like focus of the podcast was, I started talking about Bret Hart, and then I started talking about Fortnite, not the game, and it's like, how did that cross paths? So, but again, what fun.
Yeah, for sure.
So, speaking of podcasts, sort of talk us through your podcasting journey. So you've got, I'd say, 5-6 years of podcasting like under your belt. How have you found podcasting like yourself to start off with? Were there not any nerves going into it? Were there any fears like going into it that you don't necessarily like struggle with today?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of why when I first started, it was with my buddy, because I figured, okay, and we could do it in person, so that made it a lot easier too, than as opposed to, I wasn't as familiar with what we had at our disposal as far as like the StreamYards and things like that. But having him in person, we just kind of said, let's just have a conversation and we'll record it, more so than we're going to record a podcast. And that's where it kind of went from, and it was great. And then I think back to like when we first put it on, like after the fact, I'm thinking to myself, is anybody going to listen to this? Besides ourselves and maybe our family. I don't even know if my family listened to it at the time, but it was just an amazing feeling when we got our first comment. And I remember it was Ted Ted Hill. He's from Ted's Takes on Wrestling. At the time, he had the Heel Truth. He was Ted the Hillbilly Heel. One of the most supportive guys in all of podcasting. And he just made a comment about her show and complimented her show. I'm like, oh my God, like somebody actually listened to it and they liked what they heard. And it was, I mean, he's located in North Carolina. I'm like, holy crap, there's somebody in North Carolina listening to us, right? And lo and behold, here I am on a podcast in England, right? But you know, and as your journey goes on, you know, you start to meet people through the podcasting, and you're realizing there's a lot of people with the same mindset as me around wrestling, and they enjoy it as much, and they're as passionate about it as I am. And it doesn't matter what age they are. I mean, like you say, you're 21 or whatever, and I'm 50 and going on 51, but we still have the same passion. What's that? You
don't look a day over 21.
Oh, well, thank you. But you know, it's just it's the same passion. It doesn't matter. It's the same 100%. Passion. We love talking about wrestling because there's something about it that we enjoy. So for me now, ever since I did the 80's channel, it's meeting these amazing like historians and these podcasters and talking to people, like getting to meet like an Evan Ginsberg and chat about wrestling and chat about movies and chat about books and you know, he's dealt with Mickey Rourke and he's managed wrestlers and done all these different things. I'm like, again, a guy coming from Nova Scotia, that I never would talk to somebody like that. And you know, meeting a guy like Russ, who's over in California, and we're chatting about baseball and things like that. Benny, who's in Florida, but originally from New York, and talking about different things that we have in common. And you know, all these different people. I'm talking to people across the pond in England. I remember one of the first podcast that I was on was a gentleman from England. So it was just amazing. And I'm talking to different people in Australia and different continents. And it's such a small world when it comes on, but just, you realize everybody's the same. They were fans. They love it. They love talking about it. They love to meet somebody else who's just as passionate as them. And I mean, I'm getting to meet all these amazing people, and my Rolodex is building, not for selfish means. It's just, it's really cool that I can reach out to a Steve Generelli. I can reach out to an Evan Ginsberg. I can reach out to Bobby Salazar. I can reach out to whoever, right? And talk to them. And I'm making some amazing friends in this. And it's been an amazing journey. So I love it. That's why, you know, somebody asked me to be on their show. Like, that's the other thing. The first time I got asked to be on the show, I'm like, what? You want to talk to me? Like, I'm nobody, right? Like, what do you want to hear from me? But now I'm like, of course, yes, I'll do your show. I love it. I'll talk wrestling. You don't know what it might turn into, the most amazing conversation you ever had. So it's awesome. It's just an awesome experience. I keep kicking myself. I feel like I should put like a map on my wall and put little pins in all the places that all the different podcasters are from, because I think it was, I don't know, like about a month ago, I realized, you know, in a 1 month span, I spoke to someone that was in New York, someone who was in Florida, somebody who was in Tennessee, somebody who was in outside of San Francisco, somebody in Winnipeg, somebody in Ontario, and just on. And I'm like, this is crazy. But like, this is the beauty of professional wrestling.
Exactly. You know, like, guarantee our paths would have never have physically like crossed had it not have been for wrestling. You know, again, I'm in exactly like the same boat. You know, coming from a referee's standpoint, you know, I've worked with people like Paul Robinson, who is like very well known by the UK scene. I refereed in front of Will Ospreay like quite recently. You know, he was at a show that I was refereeing down in Braintree, like down in Essex, and like what have you. Eugene, former WWE Tag Team Champion, like I've worked with him, and Big Effing Joe, the winner of the 2023 CZW Tournament of Death, biggest deathmatch tournament on the planet. You know, like I've been in the bloke's car. Do you know what I mean? And yeah, like there's so many people that I've like come across and like what have you. And in terms of podcasting as well, you know, I've been on several podcasts out in the States and like what have you. Obviously, wrestling and everything coast to coast that you've been a guest on before.
Yeah.
A Bear's Thoughts, Professor Bear from
Professor Bear.
Wrestling Society Network. Again, I'm very friendly with him. Vinny Berry from the WrestleVille podcast. I've been on his show before, and what have you. And I would be here all night, listing you off the names of people that I've had on the podcast from the States, from Canada, from wherever else, in the world. Brian Idol, who's one of the biggest names in the NWA at the moment, what have you. He's been on. Sage Scott, Greg Anthony, etc. Barrett Brown, who's previously worked for the WWE on several occasions. But Barrett Brown, if you remember during the Dudley Boys Hall of Fame induction, Barrett Brown was the producer that got put through the table by the Dudley Boys.
Oh, okay.
And that's, getting to speak to people about wrestling and people that have physically worked with literally the biggest names in the world when it comes to wrestling. And as well, me personally, not as a referee, getting to referee, in front of Will Ospreay, who's perhaps the biggest name in wrestling at the moment. Do you know what I mean? That to me is just what the, I've loved wrestling since the age of 4-year-old. And as I said, I'm 21 now, 22 in November. And it's just my God, I'm getting to do this now.
I know.
I know. Yeah. And that was said earlier, our paths never would have crossed had it not have been like for wrestling. You know what I mean? And what have you.
I always refer to myself as the one step away guy, right? Because I have a dream list of who I'd like to talk to. It's Jim Cornette. I'd love to talk to Jim Cornette, right?
Yes.
And Steve Generelli, he's on the Stick to Wrestling podcast, which is on the Arcadia Vanguard Network, which is Brian Last's network, which is what Jim Cornette's co-host, right? And so I'm like, I make a joke about there's the one step away from Cornette. And then, of course, Bret Hart is on my list. And I just recently, a little while ago, got a chance to speak with Diana Hart. And I haven't put out the video yet because my problem is I'm a perfectionist. And so I want to do it the true justice and not just put out an interview. I want to make this into almost like a documentary type of thing, right? And so it will come out eventually, but here I am, I'm looking at my phone and I've got Diana Hart's information there. I'm like, this is mind-blowing, right? I've got Bret Hart's sister's information there, and she was amazing. I felt so honored to talk to her, not just talk to her, but the information that she gave. I felt like I was just being let into the Hart household, and just I think that's part of the reason why I haven't put it out yet. Is that I almost want to hold it here because it's just wow, this is just really cool. And but again, it's the one step away guy. But I love that. I love it. It's amazing. And then I'm meeting all these different people, and then I've got a great friend in podcast. His name's Tom Bryce. He's from the Sports Wire Sports Radio. Yeah, Tom's awesome. Tom's awesome. And he keeps
with
the mutton chop. Yeah. And Tom, he supports a lot of the independent scene, especially stuff that's over in your neck of the woods. And he's always feeding me names. You should contact this person. I'm thinking, man, you don't even have to do this, but this is amazing. The fact that you are. And so again, it's such an amazing world. And whether I get to talk to those people that are on my bucket list or not, the fact that I'm talking to anybody and just being able to do this is just fantastic.
100%. I was going to say, you must be doing something right, considering that you have in excess of 1,000 plus subscribers on YouTube. So the fact that now you've got anywhere near that amount obviously proves that you're doing something right. So,
I lucked out. I hit a hot streak early with some of my early videos, and I was blown away by the reaction to them. I had a couple of videos that blew up right away, and I was forever grateful for that. And then some stuff came up, life, it's like you kind of get pulled away, nothing crazy, but just busy. Right. And so I couldn't put the time into the channel as I was. So I kind of lost some momentum. So I'm trying to get it back again, but I'm so grateful to every person that watches every single video and comments on them and stuff like that. And I just, again, this is the guy that when we first started podcasting 5 years ago, I'm like, it hits you like a ton of bricks. Will anybody listen to this? And then all of a sudden you've got, over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. You got a video that's got 30,000 views and you're like, oh my God. Like, I mean, I always try to put in perspective, especially when I talk to other podcasters and they're kind of down or something. They're not getting the listens or not getting the views. I'm thinking to myself, well, how many views did you get? I got 50 on this episode. Well, think of it this way. If you booked a hotel conference room and you asked 50 people to come listen to you talk about wrestling and 50 people showed up, would you not be amazed? And they're like, yeah, I never thought about it that way. Right. So when I hear 30,000 people are watching a video, it's like, it blows your mind,
Yeah, exactly. My first views on podcasting, I started podcasting back in the summer of 2020.
Yeah.
And again, same reason as everyone else, because again, a million podcasts just sprung up like out of nowhere, like at that sort of time during COVID. And me personally, I was still in school and like what have you, but I wasn't going into school because of COVID. And like what have you, didn't do like my GCSE like exams because of COVID, because they got cancelled. But literally, I started just to give myself like something to do. And one of my biggest concerns to begin with were, getting like the trolls and the haters, and why they're coming in, calling it like a shit podcast, calling me like all the see you next Tuesdays, like under the sun, and like what have you. But then I was like, I've thankfully not had that, very well. I've been doing it now 6 years, and again, thankfully, like not had that, but I've thought if I did get that, I'll just think, if they hate me that much, and if they're criticizing me like that, why are they pressing play, and why are they still coming back week after week, time after time, like etc. You must be doing something right for them to keep coming back. More views, more watch time. Like if you monetize like on YouTube, like the more views and like the more watch time that you get, more money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was gonna say the joke's on them. It helps the algorithm, right? So
exactly.
Keep on making the comments. It's fine. It's going to help the algorithm. But there's not many. Like I get some comments sometimes, and stupid comments, right? Like it's like it's a waste, but you ignore them. And some people say, well, just mute them. It's like, no, I'll just leave it there, and somebody else that's commenting will take care of that. They'll trust me, the supporters will take care of that. And it's just more so I refer back to the people that are supportive. And if somebody puts a hateful comment, I'm just like, thanks for the listen, because thanks for the view, because it's one more on the counter, right?
Yeah, 100%. And with me now personally, I have got contacts all over the world. I've got people who I consider friends through wrestling and through podcasting, etc. I speak to Evan on a regular basis. Again, Evan is just one of the absolute best minds in wrestling and like what have you. And we said it earlier, and I'm going to say it again. He was the associate producer for the 2-time Oscar-nominated film The Wrestler. And Mickey Rourke won the Golden Globe for the best actor in the world because of the film The Wrestler, which Evan Ginsberg was the associate producer for, and Evan Ginsberg was also on the associate producer. Evan Ginsberg even acted in The Wrestler as well. And he was also the associate producer for 350 Days, perhaps the biggest wrestling documentary ever. If you haven't seen either The Wrestler or 350 Days, don't you dare call yourself a wrestling fan.
and also in Wrestling Then and Now, go check out Wrestling Then and Now as well. That's another one of his, and it's on Tubi, I think, for free. So a great another great documentary. He did that. I think he
100%.
talks about he did it for like $5,000 or something like that, and it's
Jeez.
fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Like again, the fact that how Evans got to work with the biggest names in wrestling ever, doing these things, and as well Mickey Rourke, one of the biggest actors, on the planet as well, and like he was even saying that he got to do some work with what's his face, Nicolas Cage.
Yeah.
As well, like, again, one of the biggest directors in film ever. Again, getting to work with him as well. It's just like the stuff that guy's done is just insane. And like, I'm sure that you could agree. I'm proud to have worked with the bloke on several occasions. And
the other thing is, if you're a podcaster that's listening to this right now, reach out to Evan. He'll go on anybody's podcast. He loves talking wrestling. He loves talking movies. He loves talking, general interest, stuff like that. He will come on your podcast. That's one of the things I think you probably understand this too. But when you first start out, you're very intimidated. You don't want to reach out to people. You're like, I'm nobody, and they're going to think I'm harassing them or something like that. But then you have somebody like an Evan who, will come on your show, will promote the heck out of your show, will suggest you to other people. That's how you make connections in this industry, and how it leads to having great guests on your show. So if you're listening to this and you're a podcaster, reach out to Evan Ginsberg. He's phenomenal. He's so supportive.
100%.
Yeah,
100%. Yeah, and as well, like another name that I can very much vouch for, Matt Classic at the ARWF, and it's because of the ARWF, how the Nerdic Pro first broke into America. Like getting guests on like Greg Anthony, Barrett Brown, Justin Summers from IPW, and James Harris, etc. Like the amount of people that I've been able to work with because of the ARWF, etc. Like it's insane. I was even put into contact with Evan because of the ARWF, and like Matt Classic's like another one. The ARWF have an excess of like 160 promotions under like the ARWF banner throughout like the whole world, and like what have you. And Matt Classic will gladly guide you like in the right directions. Evan's exactly the same. Again, like the contacts that he has is insane. And like as you said, he will vouch for you like to the cows come in. And which again, this is how wrestling should be and podcasting should be. You should work together. Don't be in it for yourself. And like what, because again, there's nothing worse than people just wanting all the success and all the fame for themselves. You know what I mean? I hate people like that personally with a passion. And so yeah. But then again, that's wrestling and podcasting with you. So another member of the Nerdic Pro podcast, the Nerdic Pro's Irish correspondent, very good friend of ours, Mr. Ian McWilliams, has said which wrestler from the 1980s could work in the modern era.
Yeah, well, hello, Ian, and I have some Irish roots too, so I'll say my blood flows over there too. But I think there's more than you would think that could work in today's era. I think everybody thinks about again the big guys, the steroid era, stuff like that, the Ultimate Warriors and the Hogans are like, oh no, they wouldn't. But Bret Hart, number one, would work unbelievable he would just be unbelievable, the matches he'd be putting on. Eddie Guerrero, Owen Hart, another guy, Sly Counter. We never got to the question, but he asked about Great Muta and what would he have done in WWF in the 80s and 90s. Great Muta would have been amazing in today's era. He almost made it to today's era actually, but Great Muta, I thought he was amazing. When he showed up in '89 in the NWA, he blew my mind. Like, I thought he was the coolest guy. Like the look, the move set, everything. And I wasn't a big Japanese wrestling guy. I just wasn't seeing it. I didn't have access to it like you would now. But just to see him was amazing. How would he have done in the WWF? I think the NWA was the right place for him. Although I do think, if he went to the WWF, I think he could have had some classics there too. It's just they were so big on the big man era at the time when he came in the late '80s, early '90s. But in the mid '90s, imagine him having matches with Bret Hart and Steve Austin and all these guys. Back to the question by Ian. Lots and lots of guys from the '80s. The Midnight Express. Could you imagine? Well, look at FTR. They love the Midnight Express. They emulate the Midnight Express. So they would be awesome in the tag team division. The British Bulldogs. The Hart Foundation as a tag team would be amazing at that time. Pretty much most people from the NWA. Tully Blanchard. Oh my God, Tully Blanchard would be so good right now. He'd be MJF on steroids, and not in body wise. I just mean like just how much he would drive you crazy. A guy that a lot of people don't talk about, but Nature Boy Buddy Landel would be phenomenal in this day and age. I love Buddy Landel from the mid '80s. He was fantastic. Barry Windham. Oh my God, Barry Windham would be so over right now because he's a big man that could wrestle and move and stuff like that. I mean, I could go on and on. Any of the Four Horsemen definitely could do it. I think a Sting, he proved it by being in AEW. He could adapt. He would be phenomenal in any era. Guys that would be like the Warrior and stuff like that. But we talked about Ricky Steamboat. We talked about the Rock and Roll Express. The Fantastics would be great. The Von Erichs, I think, could wrestle in this era. Gino Hernandez, another guy that would be a stable with Gino Hernandez, Tully Blanchard, and MJF would tear the place apart. Flair, of course. Flair could. Terry Funk. Could you imagine Terry Funk? John Moxley wants to be Terry Funk. So that guy in there, there's so many. There's so many that could work. There's some that can't, but I think everybody would adjust. But I know a lot of people think of that era as being all about the big man and stuff like that, but even some of the big guys from that time period. I mean, could you imagine Bam Bam Bigelow in AEW or something like that? Or I don't know.
I think Big Boss Man, maybe.
Big Boss Man, there's a great one. Yeah, I think even got a guy like a King Kong Bundy because. As big as he was, he had psychology and stuff like that. He wasn't just a lumbering guy. He was smart. Another guy, Don Morocco. I freaking love Don Morocco. Don Morocco would be awesome. Lots. Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper would set the world on fire.
Roddy Piper, like the heel that he was back in the day, like the shit that he'd get off people like nowadays would be, like insane.
They'd be burning the buildings down because of the stuff he's doing. But I mean, they had to turn him babyface because he was getting stabbed and threatened so much. So I mean, there's guys that wouldn't do it. Oh, could you imagine the Fabulous Freebirds right now?
Oh God, yeah.
like groups like that. Just Terry Gordy. Oh my God, what a machine Terry Gordy was. Just a machine. Dr. Death, guys like that. Just I'd love to see them, mixing it up with some people. Like I'd love to see like a Terry Gordy against a what's his name? Why am I I'm going blank on him from the Vision? Not Braun Breaker, but no, the other guy, the big guy that's injured. Bronson Reed.
Bronson Reed, yeah.
Terry Gordy against Bronson Reed. Sign me up for that. Sign me up for that. I mean, Braun Breaker proves the Steiner brothers would be fantastic in this era.
Yeah.
But then the reverse, I could see some guys that would work great in the old school too, right? Like you say, like a Braun Breaker would be fantastic in that. Yeah. Roman Reigns would actually fit in that era. He'd have to speed things up a little bit. But
you mentioned FTR.
Yeah.
3 of my absolute favorite tag team matches ever are the three matches that FTR had with the Briscoes over the Ring of Honor tag team titles. Again, had they have happened, like, don't get me wrong, those three matches, some of the best wrestling I've seen in a very long time. Had they have happened 30, maybe 40 years ago, I can guarantee I probably would have liked it a hell of a lot more had they have happened 30, 40 years ago than like what I did today. But honestly, those three matches, the FTR, like that trilogy that they had with FTR and the Briscoes, Jay Briscoe, like, God rest his soul, and again, just fantastic matches. If anyone watching this, if you haven't seen those three matches between FTR and the Briscoes, go watch them like now. Because they were
old school.
Fantastic.
It was old school, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Exactly. And like FTR, their old school psychology that they have. Going to like the Rock and Roll Express, like the Midnight Express. I can very much see their sort of styles, and like the Heart Foundation, like, as well in FTR. Again, because like the very old school was like how they wrestle, which is personally like how I like it. Me personally, I'm a massive fan of like tag team wrestling, like, especially from like the 80s, 90s. Early 2000s, you know what I mean?
Yep.
So yeah.
There was another great tag match, and give AEW credit for this, was it was FTR against what's his name, Juice Robinson and
Finley.
What's that?
Dave Finley?
Not Finley, the guy who just came back, Switchblade, Jay White.
Yes, yeah.
They had, I think it was like a 60-minute match on Collision or on Dynamite or something. That felt like an old school tag team match with a modern twist on it. But so there is good wrestling out there, but you find normally it's when people kind of pull back a little bit and not throw everything at the canvas, right? Like it's not the complaint is about modern stuff isn't that they aren't talented. It's just you could use a little more psychology and slowing down to make everything register a bit more. Would really make it over the top.
So Ian has put Andre the Giant versus Obafemi. Could you imagine?
How about Andre versus Brock Lesnar?
Oh God, yeah, that would be.
Did you see Andre getting F5'd?
Oh my God, yeah, mate. Like that would just be, like a ring break spot, like just like waiting to happen. Just like the ring collapsing like there's no tomorrow. So yeah. Hang on, sorry, phone fell.
No worries.
Richie had put "Dem Boys," obviously the Briscoes slogan that they'd use, and yeah. So Blair, like another question that like I wanted to ask, what would you say the biggest differences are from the 80s compared to today?
Well, I mean, as far as what you're watching, there's a big difference as far as how the product is displayed. I mean, back in my day, it was, a lot of the stuff was basically it was a lot less glitz and glamour in the territory stuff. You just had a wrestling ring, you had a couple of guys in their trunks, and you had a single overhead light and stuff like that, and the crowd wasn't too lit up, and you just watched matches. The WWF, they were pretty much glitz and glamour right from the middle 80s on. So it's not a whole lot different, the WWF, how they produced it back then versus what's now. It's just there's so much more advertising now. That's kind of the frustration. It's frustrating to see so many matches that get interrupted with advertisements and stuff like that. Whereas I like the idea of it kind of makes you think, well, this match isn't obviously going to end during the advertisements, so they know exactly how long this match is going to go, right? Whereas you watch a UFC, you're not going to see an ad come on in the middle of round 2. You know what I mean? You're going to see it in between rounds. So they need to get rid of that stuff. I mean, I mentioned it just a few minutes ago. It's just more so the style is just much faster now. But, you know, it's, I think a lot of people think of, when they think of 80s stuff, they think of just WWF. And yes, it was a slower product in WWF because it was all about the character work and stuff like that. Although there was people that were doing some great stuff. But, you know, like some of the territories was not much different as far as the style and the speed of it. You know, like the NWA or like we talked about World Class. I mean, that was hard hitting and fast paced. But the biggest difference for me is the psychology behind it. It's just, there's no stopping to let a move breathe. You know what I mean? Like there's no selling. It's just always constant. It's like one chain after another, after another, after another, after another. And you don't give the fans a time to react to that amazing move that you just saw. And then how do you how do you even register that as a fan? Like this guy just got hit with a massive super kick, but he's right back up on his feet. He's going to get hit with a Hurricane Rana, or now he's going to get hit with a Poison Rana. He's going to get hit with a curb stomp, and he's going to kick out of that, and now he's going to get right up into something. Whereas guys would actually sell some stuff. You know, the other massive thing that drives me crazy is there's no finishers anymore. Like there's not a finisher. Nobody has one because every one of them gets kicked out of. They can call it a finisher, but it's not really a finisher. If you kick out of it, it's not a finisher. It's just a setup move, right? I think we need to get back to actually protecting finishers. That would make a big difference because people nowadays, they expect it to be kicked out of, and you want to surprise fans. You want to shock fans, and just, they know there's going to be 5 different finishers that are going to get kicked out of before the match is over. And then it's going to end on a roll up or a small package, right? It's like, let's just finish a match with a guy's actual move. That would be very nice. So that's, for me though, it's the speed and the pace and the lack of selling and the psychology side. I think with the athleticism that you have with wrestlers today, if you could add that in, you would have an amazing, amazing product. But unfortunately for me, it takes me out of it. And we get back to what we talked about at the beginning, is just the realism. Like you believed these guys, like a Blackjack Mulligan was real. A Wahoo McDaniel was real. You know, a Dick Slater was real. And Ole Anderson was real. They weren't playing a part. These were tough guys, and just turned up a notch or something like that. Even like a Steve Austin is real. You know, he's just turned it up to 10, something like that. You know, so that's why I love Bret Hart. He was real. Like people called maybe his promos boring. I liked his promos because they were real. You believed what he was saying. And that's, I find right now, I don't believe a lot of these people, what they're saying or what they're doing.
Yeah, like personally, one of my biggest weaknesses when it comes to wrestling is, you know, being like a referee. And like I notice like a lot nowadays, like watching like whatever it is, you know, like whatever product, whether it be, you know, WWE, Raw, SmackDown, NXT, Evolve, whatever, AEW, Dynamite, Collision, whether it be, you know, Ring of Honor, TNA, House of Glory, New Japan, Noah, whatever. Like a lot of the time, I can sit there and think, yep, I called that. Yep, I called that. Yep, he's not going to do this. He's not going to do that. And like a lot of things, as you said, are very predictable. Because it like a lot of things is literally same stuff, different match, same sequence, different match. Same moves, different person. Do you know what I mean? And like a lot of people literally use exactly the same arsenal like of moves. And it's just like, can't you sort of like tweak moves like a tiny bit and like what have you? Because like I think WWE at the minute is literally Raw is pretty much same stuff, different week. SmackDown, same stuff, different week. Literally like the same flow of matches, like not every time. And it's like, can't we see something different now? You know, like we've seen this finish literally like in the match before. Like what have you? Do you know what I mean? Richie has said, you've just described my view on the difference between AEW and WWE.
Yeah.
So,
well, you know yourself, Bobby, coming from wrestling and your involvement in it, you just talked about, it's become very predictable. You know what you're going to see. Wrestling should be like, you shouldn't have the fans completely confused. They should know what's coming in a linear pattern, but it shouldn't be overly predictable. That's the difference, right?
Yeah.
Like, people see a heel turn coming back in the day. They know it's coming. They just didn't know when it was coming, but they could sense it was coming. Like I talked about the Orndorff Hogan situation, that was being built for months, right? And they knew it was coming, but it wasn't that predictable. But like you say, it's like paint by numbers now. It's just, you know what a match is going to be. You know how the show is going to be. You know it's going to be segment 1 is going to be this. It's an in-ring promo. Segment 2 is going to be a women's match. Segment 3 is going to be a backstage promo. Segment 4 is going to be another in-ring promo, another women's match. Then you get a guys match. It's just over and over again. It's like nothing shocks people. Even when they try to shock people, it doesn't shock people, or people, I find fans almost rebel against it because, well, it wasn't predictable. So now we need your predictability. Like the whole Sami Zayn thing with him winning the title. Right now, people were mad about him winning the title. Now they're mad because he lost the title. It's like, what do you want, people? It's like, but sometimes they outthink themselves and they make it way too crazy. And then the other times it's way too predictable. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, that's, see, it's not a bad thing, being predictable, but it's, bad when when the fans can sort of like plan the finish out probably before like the wrestlers can. Do you know what I mean? Like when they're choreographing everything backstage. Do you know what I mean? And yeah. So
the fans should see it coming enough that they want to see the ending of it, right? So they're going to buy the ticket to see the ending of it, but it shouldn't be that they already have called it right from the get-go. I guess is the way I'm looking at it, right? And that's the difference, I think, with predictability events, because the whole point of wrestling is to take the fans on a roller coaster ride of emotion, right? You get them up, you get them down, you get them back up again, you get them down, and then you bring them to their crescendo, right? It's not hard, but they're making it very hard to find.
Yeah, exactly. So Blair, my next question is, when it comes to podcasting, how is it you actually prep for podcasts? Do you do like myself, where you take notes down when it comes to stuff, or is it you visualize everything and you mentally take notes and everything, or do you jot notes down and what have you? How is it you actually prep for everything?
Yeah, so if I have a guest coming on, number one, and much to what I loved what Evan put out there, that was great. That's why I did repost that. I agree with them. It should be 80% guest, 20% host, right? And the 20% is the host asking things or playing off of what the guest is saying. So for me, depending on who it is or what the topic is, I may do some research on, for instance, with Evan, I did research on the movies and the documentaries, and I watched the documentaries and stuff like that. And I wrote some stuff down I wanted to talk about from that, but it wasn't like a laundry list of questions, because I knew just from watching previous podcasts with him, I know Evan, you tell him go and Evan will go and he'll tell you some amazing stories. And you just feel like you're sitting there at the kitchen table listening to him talk. But, so I want to have a few questions in case you get those, lulls and stuff like that. But I like to I want to play off of what the person is telling me and then take the conversation from there, go in many different directions, because it goes back to the point of listening to what the answer is, as opposed to just question 1, question 2, question 3. But as I say, I do research. It depends. So if it's a wrestler maybe I'm not familiar with, then yeah, I'm gonna watch some of their matches and learn more about them, so I don't look like an idiot going in there. If it's an author, I want to read their book, or a lot of times it's somebody maybe I've already read their book and now I want to actually reach out to them, as opposed to getting them on my show and then reading the book or something like that. But I like to do prep for it. But if it's a topic that I'm very familiar with, so if I'm having Russ on and we're going to talk Mid-South wrestling, I don't really need to prepare for that. I just do it for the fun of it because I can watch a bunch of wrestling, old school wrestling for a while. But I'm pretty familiar with that topic, and then it just go from there, right? But yeah, it's I want to show respect to anybody who's coming on the show. That's the biggest thing. I don't want to get on there and just them feel like, well, geez, that guy doesn't really know what the hell I'm all about or what I should be talking about. So that's the biggest thing. But usually I like to also prep the person, say, hey, by the way, you're coming on. This is what I want to talk about. Like, not necessarily question, but this is the topic. So with Russ, I said, how about we talk about Mid-South wrestling? Because we're both fans of it, right? With Evan, it's like, let's talk about Madison Square Garden, because Evan was there year after year, month after month, sitting in Madison Square Garden, watching all these amazing wrestling cards. So let's talk about it, and I'll come up with some weird questions. Like I asked him, what did it smell like? Like, honestly, what did it smell like in there? Because I want to know that, I picture when I'm watching old footage from Madison Square Garden, I'm picturing like the smell of popcorn and the smell of hot dogs and, and maybe the circus had been in town the week before. Maybe, it's during hockey season and you can smell the ammonia from the Zamboni or something like that. That's what I want to. And like, he kind of chuckled when I asked him, but it's true. Like, I want to know what it's like. Where did you sit? Like, where were you sitting? If I'm watching, a card, would I be seeing the area where you're sitting so I can know what view you had, stuff like that? Or with Steve, we talked about, like I said, I wanted to talk about the times of WWF before Hulkamania, because it's not quite as appreciated. Or whoever's coming on, like with Benny, when we talked about Bruno, I'm like, well, I'm going to do as much research as I can on Bruno because I didn't live through it. I wasn't there. I saw some of Bruno because he had that run in the 80s in WWF and had an amazing 86 actually. Yeah. But sorry, I keep him down with my dog. But yeah, it's that's kind of my process. I don't try to over prepare because I don't want to get myself freaked out and like I got to ask all these questions. It's kind of like with my Diana Hart interview. For her, I had a bunch of questions. I want to show the respect to somebody like that. But I think I asked maybe 3. I mean, just the way the conversation went. She was similar to Evan. Like, I asked one question and it went off to a whole different direction, which was great. And then we went with another question from that conversation, whatever. So it's kind of that way, like I don't want to over prepare, but I want to make sure I'm showing respect to people.
100%. Yeah. Like with Bruno's run, like the 80s, I believe that was with David Sammartino, wasn't it? And like,
and he was a commentator as well.
He had a match of one of the WrestleManias that year, like David, didn't he? And so and as well, yes, that was it. Yeah. And one of the things that I will always say about hosting podcasts, if you ever got Russ Jackman and/or Evan Ginsberg on, and if you're not too sure about like stats and statistics, then Russ and/or Evan will know like the time, the dates, like exactly like what time it happened, like the shows and everything. Like they are just walking like encyclopedias when it comes to like fresher wrestling. Like that's one of the many things that I will always speak highly of when it comes to Russ and Evan, because they like wrestling is just them, isn't it? You know what I mean?
It's their lifeblood type of thing,
Exactly.
And the other thing I always say to podcasters too, like I have people on that I want to have on, I find them interesting. So it becomes more of me just being, I want to learn about you, right? As opposed to, I've turned down some interviews because I'm just not familiar with the people. And it's not a topic maybe that, like, if it was a deathmatch person from, 2015, well, that's not my cup of tea, right? And it's not what I'm going to have a knowledge base on. And it's no offense to them. It's just, I don't think I'm going to give them a good interview. So, but if I have, an enhancement wrestler that was on WWF Superstars of Wrestling in 1986, boy, oh boy, I'm going to have a great conversation with you. You know what I mean? So
100%, yeah. Like everyone has like their own niche, don't they? And everyone has like like their own what's the word, like
a
target sort of
Yeah.
audience, like, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
And like what have you. Yeah, you know, like it's not, you know, like a bad thing, like at all, you know, like having that, because again, sort of do the podcast that you're most familiar with when it comes to that particular genre or particular person, like, etc. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, just try and give like the better product that you can. So
and it'll mess up your audience too, right? Because if I'm an 80s dedicated channel, and like I say, I have the guy that's a deathmatch wrestler from 2015, they're gonna be like, well, that's not what I tune in for. Now, if the guy that's a deathmatch wrestler from 2015 loves 80s wrestling, he wants to talk about Mid-South from 1984, sure, come on my show and we'll chat that, and then we'll talk about what you do as well. That makes sense for the audience, right? So that's I guess that's the difference with it.
100%. Yeah. So Blair, what have you got coming up show-wise, like in terms of podcasts and like etc. Plus as well, where can people find you on social media if they are finding you out for the first time tonight?
Yeah, so pretty easy on any social media. So on YouTube, it's Wrestling with the 80s is the YouTube channel. It's just at Wrestling with the 80s as far as the handle. Facebook, you can find me personally. I have a Blair Cody on Facebook account, but I actually have a page dedicated to Wrestling with the 80s. So again, just go on Facebook and look up Wrestling with the 80s. And on Instagram, same thing. It's just at Wrestling with the 80s. It's pretty much the same stuff on Instagram as on Facebook, but just, you know, some people prefer one over the other, I guess is the way it goes. As far as the show, I mean, it's right now. So as I say, it'll probably be tomorrow that my newest episode will be released. And that's going to be my conversation with Steve Generelli. Like I said, it's going to be talking about, I'm calling it before the boom, before the Hulkamania era, WWF in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. And, you know, just an appreciation for that, chatting about that. But in the midst of it, Steve is very similar to me. His bread and butter was like that Hulkamania era, the mid 80s to late 80s. So we talk about that a bit too, but that's going to be a really fun episode. I put a ton of work into like putting pictures in and putting like a great intro and stuff like that. So it's going to, Evan inspires me because he always says, don't make fluff, make art, right? So I'm trying to make art with the stuff I do. So that's the newest episode. So that should be out tomorrow. So if you want to check that out on the channel, I eventually will get my Diana Hart interview out there, which is going to be probably more like almost like a documentary than an interview, just the way it went. As far as other things that are in the hopper, so I've been doing a lot of like shows with guests on them lately, which when I first started the channel was just myself doing videos, a lot of faceless videos, to be quite honest. And then I got the opportunity to do a lot of shows with guests. And but I want to get back to doing some of those faceless videos too, more so just because they're fun to do. And so I've got one that I've been working on, and I keep putting it off, but it's talking about all the wrestlers that held the Winged Eagle title, the WWF Winged Eagle title through the 80s and 90s. I want to just do something on that, just more of a shorter one. I've got one I want to do. I do like kind of spotlight videos between 5 and 10 minutes just on different titles of the 80s. So I did one on the Intercontinental title, and I did one on what was the other one? Jeez, I'm going. Oh, the NWA TV title. Like, so those were two popular ones on my channel. So I want to do one on the NWA United States title, because that's one of my favorite title belts. Like, it's just beautiful title belt. So I'm talking about like the ones that like Nikita Koloff had, and Lex Luger and Barry Windham and those guys, right? So I want to do that. So videos like that. I love doing what if videos. Like, two of my most popular videos on my channel are what if on Magnum TA. What if Magnum TA's accident never happened? What would the wrestling world look like? And that was a really fun one to do. What if, you know, David Von Erich was still around today? What would the wrestling landscape have looked like? Would he have been world champion? So I want to get back to doing some what if videos and stuff like that too. Plus, continuing to have guests on and talking with them as well. So just kind of a hodgepodge of stuff. But I even have videos on there where my wife comes on and we do kind of a quasi trivia game, and it's just kind of a fun one because we get a kick out of it. She's trying to name the wrestler and I'm putting some goofy names and stuff like that. So I try to just have some fun with it and just do what makes me happy with the channel, and seems to get a good reaction. So, but yeah, as far as what's coming up, just look for that video with Steve Generelli coming out tomorrow.
100%. Yeah. I can certainly vouch for Blair. Like, I've watched several of his podcasts, several of his shows, like on his channel, and they are certainly worth the watch. 100%.
Thank you very much.
And yeah, like if you are like a fan like of the 80s, then Wrestling with the 80s is certainly like the show to like go check out. So Blair, have you got anything to add on to the end of tonight's podcast?
No, well, just thank you very much, Bobby, for having me on. This has been a fantastic conversation. I became a fan of yours when I watched you on Evan and Russ's show, and I was blown away when I found out that you were 21. I was like, holy crap, this guy is just very mature for 21, which is rare that you see nowadays. So, and it's scary for me too, is I've got a 14-year-old son. I'm like, oh, this guy's not too far away from my son's age. But no, it's been a real pleasure to be on here. It's great to talk to anybody who is a fan of wrestling, has an appreciation for wrestling. Somebody who's my dog's trying to get on the action here. Somebody who's been in the ring, and actually you've got one up on me there. You've been in the ring. You've actually refereed. You've done that. So I appreciate people who've done that. Like, that's amazing. It's a dream to live out and do that. So, as far as messages to any of the listeners, go and check out old wrestling. Like, just for, it's really fun, and it's you'll find some gems out there. I think in this episode, we talked about a lot of matches that people could go and check out. I mean, it's not just all 5-minute rest holds. It's not just, it's just not a headlock for 10 minutes and stuff like that. There was some great matches back in the day. Go check out and appreciate guys like Buddy Landell, Ricky Steamboat, the Rock and Roll Express, the Midnight Express, Bret Hart, all those different guys, like Flair, all of them. Like, just go look at territories like I think I said before, World Class in 83, Mid-South 84, Jim Crocker Promotions from 85 to 89, WWF, of course. Like, it's just awesome. You will find something you'll enjoy. You'll probably find some angles back then. You're like, wait a second, didn't Triple H do this, a couple of months ago? Because he's a fan of it too, and he's just putting a little modern twist on some of the old angles. So yeah, I always say keep the old school wrestling alive, because it's if wrestlers today would pick up on a little bit, I think they'd be doing fantastic for themselves.
100%, yeah. Like, when I did the podcast with Russ and Evan on their show, I'd literally only been 21 for about a week, and so I'd literally only just turned 21, and and as you said, like, without trying to sound big-headed, like, again, I've worked with a lot of British wrestling legends who have literally been there, done that. Again, physically worked in front of Will Ospreay. Again, one of the biggest names like in the business at the minute. Eugene, former WWE Tag Team Champion, worked there. People who've won stuff out in America, been on TV in America. Johnny Storm even challenged for the TNA X Division title way back when. So again, I'm good friends with people like Johnny Storm, like what have you. Podcasting wise, just go look for yourself. Like, when it comes to everyone, no, he's been on the podcast previously. Again, I'll be here like all night listening off everyone, and like what have you. And again, without trying to sound big headed, like, I don't think that I've done too bad, or the Nerdic pros I've done too bad. So not bad for like a 21-year-old. So,
yeah, not too bad at all. I'll say that. Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Hey, I've got a question for you.
Yeah.
So, is Ospreay going to win the title at Wembley? Is that what's going to happen?
I'm actually going to Wembley.
Are you going?
And I do hope that he does. 100%. Genuinely hope he does. Like, you heard the pop, I'd imagine, when Saraya won the women's title at Wembley, right? Mm-hmm. I'd imagine this would be the biggest thing ever, because Ospreay recently did like a press conference, like sort of type of thing, and he said something like along the lines of Wembley is like the Mecca when it comes to football here in England, here in the UK, really, and obviously like the UK consists of all of our like overseas territories, obviously England, Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland, and like what have you. Wembley is like the Mecca for everyone growing up to wanting to become footballers and like what have you. And you know, it's also like a big concert place as well.
Yep.
You know, many major singers and bands play there regularly, and like what have you. And the fact that now Will Ospreay has got the chance to become the AEW World Heavyweight Champion in front of a potential of 90,000 people, you know, is, you know, in like the Mecca for English sports, British sports, you know, he's just insane. Bearing in mind he's from, you know, like a small little town like in Essex that no one's ever heard of, and like what have you. Grew up, you know, with ADHD and like everything else, and like what have you, same as myself, you know, and he's, you know, got to be there in front of, physically in front of tens of thousands of people and many more millions watching at home.
Yep.
It's got to be huge. Do you know what I mean? So hopefully I get to see the Aerial Assassin physically with Ospreay, who has seen me win the AEW World title at Wembley. I do hope so.
Will it? Okay. Is it going to be MJF that he's fighting? Because I don't watch AEW all the time, but I see like everything online. And isn't MJF still fighting Kenny Omega for the title, or has that already happened?
I don't actually know, to be fair. Honestly, I think it would be better, and the potential that this match has, maybe a triple threat match: Will Ospreay, Kenny Omega, MJF, potentially fatal four-way if you stick in Darby Allin. Mate,
right.
That match will be insane.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like it could go one of three or four different ways. Singles match, MJF, Will Ospreay. Triple threat match, Omega, Ospreay, MJF. Four-way match, Omega, Ospreay, MJF, and Darby Allin. Potentially with Mick Foley at ringside, because MJF has had a bit of beef with Mick, like as of late. Again, Mick, like I've seen him personally before, like a couple of times, and courtesy of Paige's family, because I've, again, like another claim to fame, I've refed Soraya's, Paige's brother, and her nephew as well. So I know her family as well.
Well, I hope you do. I do hope you get your wish. I do hope he wins the title, because it would be a massive. It'd be like Davey Boy when he won in Wembley as well, right? You know, so yeah.
In the same place as well, in the very
same place. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it could be a massive moment. It could be a massive moment for AEW as well. Like sometimes I wonder too if maybe they're hurting their ticket sales by they've got so much going on right now leading up to it with all these title matches with MJF and stuff like that. It's like, again, we talk about wrestling should be slightly predictable and should be easy to follow, and they really need to put in concrete it's going to be this match so people can now buy their tickets and know, okay, this is what I'm going to see, right? But that's kind of Tony Khan. He just throws everything at the wall, right?
Yeah.
Good or bad. Yeah.
I was reading earlier that supposedly tickets have been have now been given like a 50% discount on it, because they've sold less than 30,000 so far.
Yes, I saw that.
And it's like that's like this should be the pinnacle of AEW, really. Do you know what I mean? Like here in the UK, up until Clash of the Castle in Cardiff, that was our first stadium show over here since SummerSlam '92. You know what I mean? And like what have you? And these sorts of things should be huge. Do you know what I mean? But last year was meant to have been like abysmal. like when it comes like to ticket sales. Like the show like was really good, and like whatever, just like ticket sales were just horrendous, which is bad, you know, considering that Wembley is a 90,000 capacity in addition to floor seats as well. Do you know what I mean? It's just like, you know, like it's. Yeah, they'd be better off if it's got to be like that, just doing something like at the O2 or something like in London, like as well, like in Greenwich. So, so that's wrestling for you. So,
exactly.
So, but yeah, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of the Nerdic Pro podcast, in my opinion, this has been a literally just turned 2 hours, very well spent. My name has, as per usual, been Bobby effing Salazar. With me on the line has been none other than the man himself from the Wrestling with the 80's podcast, Mr. Blair Cody. Blair, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on this evening. Thank you so much for spending your last 2 hours chatting with me. So, yeah.
Thank you for having me.
So, for those of you watching, please do not forget to subscribe to Wrestling with the 80's, follow them, follow Blair, and again, you will not be disappointed with the content that he produces. So yeah, thank you all very, very much for watching, and we shall be seeing you all later. Goodbye.